Okay, Barber in here, and there's no time to waste, so let's get straight into it. Start off by creating your outline with a small trimmer. Now, the idea is you're going to have a trimmer and you're going to have a main clipper. Now, you want to make sure your small trimmer doesn't cut as deep as your main clipper. There's two ways of doing this. You can either loosen this one, or you can make sure you zero gap your main clipper. And zero gap simply means you're making the two blades very close to each other so it cuts deeper. There's very basic, easy tutorials out there on YouTube. Okay, so yeah, first thing, create that zero outline. A few tips around this is simply don't go too high to begin with with your first haircuts, because that will just end up leaving you with too much of a skinned head or just shaved head, so not much room to blend up on. At the same time, you don't want that fade to look like a cheese string, if you know what I mean, where your fade is so high that you just have a lot of hair at the top and nothing on the sides or any bulk. But anyway, so here I'm using the three-way mirror. So before, they used to only have these self-cut mirrors in America, and I ordered it. It cost me about 19 total. But now if you go on Amazon, you find some alternatives finally, and it'll probably come to around £30. But anyway, you can also have a handheld mirror while you're looking at a front mirror. Continuing on the haircut, after you've done the outline, bring out one of your shavers, and I won't go too much into depth with this, because if you want to know more in depth, if you go onto my videos, there is a part 1 on how to do a full skin fade, and that goes fully in depth on how to do the skinning part. But to keep it simple, just create your outline and skin, and the main aim is when you come close to the line, do a little bit of a flicking motion so you don't create a new line. Now you'll find that if you have a beard, that little area here that I'm working on is quite tight. So if you have a small shaver, that's great. If not, just carry on with what you do have. And to make it easier for the shavers as well, below it you can even take your trimmers out and just put a bit of force and really cut deeper. So then when you use your full shavers, if they're not that good, it at least makes it a lot easier for the shavers to cut through. Okay, so we're going to be entering into the next stage now. So stage 1, the skinning process, the outlining process. Stage 2, we're going to start to create a first outline using number 1. So what you want to do is take the number 1 out and keep your lever fully closed. You'll see that at the back, the distance between the two lines is a lot wider, and as you get to the sides, it's a bit closer. So as you get more experience, you can try that to see that. You'll see that the fade's a lot better. Why? Because the back is a lot thicker than the sides most often. Well, that should be the case. And especially this area here, you'll have this little dark area here, just like there's like a mostly I'll see with clients, they'll have like a dent there and it's hard to fade around there. So do apply quite a bit of pressure around those corner areas, like it's just around the top right of the ear there. So yeah, so the next step, we're going into the 0.5 guard. With the 0.5 guard, this is where it gets a bit tricky. So right now all we're doing is creating lines and setting guidelines, so don't try to blend anything just yet. With the 0.5 guard, you're going halfway in between the two outlines. And for the back, just a little tip, if you can, go a bit higher at the back with the 0.5, because it's a lot thicker and you'll need a lot more room to fade without the guards, which is what I'm doing now. So without the guards. So stage 3 we can call this, which is where we're actually beginning to blend. So the lever, I've just opened it to 20%. So by 20%, all you're doing, not even 20, it can even be 10%. All you're doing is just making sure it's not fully closed, just a bit more open from the closed. And what we're doing here is we're flicking that bottom line into the 0.5. So by that, what I mean, to really make it simple, flick it where that line is very clear, right at the bottom, and flick it so you do not go past the 0.5 line. Okay, so we're still on the blending stage of the bottom line. So what I did there, I fully closed it now. And now the aim is to do exactly what you did earlier, except the line right at the bottom, you're still hitting it, but you're keeping that gap now very narrow. So you're trying to not ruin the blend you just created below that 0.5. To simplify, all you're doing is erasing that bottom line, and you're doing it in such a tight space. You're not trying to go any higher than where the 0.5 was. Definitely not higher than that, but enough to erase that bottom line. So this stage may require you to apply different amounts of pressure. So even though the blade is fully closed, using different levels of pressure will really give you that professional finish. So really apply pressure when you're hitting the bottom line, and as you're blending up, just lighten the pressure a bit, and that will naturally help you blend. So we're going on to the next stage now. So where the last 0.5 was, to erase that, we're repeating the exact same thing except with the 0.5 guard. So to simplify, take the 0.5 guard, open it 10%, 20%, just a little bit from it being fully closed, and repeat the exact same thing. So now you're flicking up, but up to the highest line, which is the number 1 line. And so when you feel like you've done this quite well, what you want to do is you want to fully close the clipper. And what this will do is now it will make sure if there's any lines in the between the 0.5 and the 1, now you can just get rid of it. And there's a trick with this again, like I said earlier, just apply a bit more pressure. When you apply a bit more pressure, even with the 0.5 guard, you'll be surprised how deep it can cut. Okay, so if you made it this far, you're about halfway through now. So take the number 1 again, fully closed. All we're doing now is refining the line that we created right there, that is apparent. So by refining it, why are we doing this? So when we go to the next stage, it helps blend in a lot easier. Why? Because below the number 1, we use the 0.5, and at times that 0.5 could have reached too close to the 1. So it readjusts the gap between the two again, and it just makes it easier to blend through the top again. So take your number 1 and adjust the line. You can raise the line just ever so slightly, especially around the back, but not so much so on the sides. Okay, so a few tips here while I'm showing the number 1 still. During the haircut, make sure you're constantly brushing the hairs off your skin. Why? When you're doing the haircut, it makes it easier to see what you're actually working on. At times you may be working around a certain area and not realizing there's just hair left over from after cutting it. So this stage that I'm at now, this is more of a refining stage. So everything below, I'm just using my barbering skills here. So if you are a barber, this is good for you. If you are completely a beginner, you don't really need to do this, but over time you may become more experienced, and so look back at this video to see that you can refine the bottom a lot more. What I'm doing is I'm fully opening the lever and working just under the 1 again, and also I did some other parts where I'm closing the lever a bit too. Now we're going to the next stage. This is a 1.5 guard, and with the 1.5 guard we are creating a new outline. Again, just like as we have done earlier, it's about a centimeter. As a beginner, yeah, do a little bit more than a centimeter, enough so that you can blend quite easily. Obviously for more experienced people, keep it closer, that way the fade will stand out a lot darker. And it's also dependent on how thick your hair is. My hair is fairly fine, so I do need to keep it a lot closer. So to keep this simple, I've just kept that same sort of strategy. Now we're on stage 3 of that blending process. First we did it with no guards, then we did it with 0.5, now we're on 1. So what we're going to do, take the 1, open it 10%, flick it out, and then to refine the bottom line below that, we just do fully closed 1. So just to recap for everyone, right at the start when we first got rid of the first line, we took no guards, 10% open, then fully closed. Then we took the 0.5, 10% open, fully closed. Now we're on 1 guard, 10% open, flicking into the 1.5, and then we're going to fully close it. If you haven't noticed already, look at the bottom left. That will just give you a tracker of which guard I'm using. Okay, so take the number 2, and what we're doing, we're just creating a centimeter outline again. By the way, if you ever think, oh, he didn't mention if it's open or closed, if I mention outline, know that it is closed, fully closed. So as usual, what we're going to do, below the number 2 in the guard system, it comes to 1.5. So grab the 1.5, and by now you probably know what I'm going to do. Take the 20% or 10% open, flick out the line, and then what you do, fully close it and get rid of the line below it. So this is where it goes a bit different. So instead of going to a number 3 guard, we're just going to take the number 2 guard and fully open and flick into the book. Now, an important thing I should have said at the start, I'm going to mention it now. Before the haircut, make sure you've had a haircut 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago at maximum. It just makes it a lot easier. But if you haven't, there's still a solution, which is just undercut your sides with like a 4 to be safe, or a 3. Just literally shave the sides and back with a 3 for beginners. Obviously, if you're more experienced, I'm sure you'll find a way to make it more balanced to the top. A good tip is, as soon as you've done it open, do the close and work below it, just so if there's any lines below it, you can get rid of it. So I don't think I've got the clip there, but you get the idea. So it's just refining the fade. I don't think I showed some of the parts where after I did come back, it wasn't recorded. I, as a barber, went through a bit of refining everything, any little lines, any dark areas, and whatnot. So that stage, obviously, when you're more experienced, you can do that. But yeah, so what I've done here, just showing how to get the top to be a bit more texturized. So comb it down, take a guard and just roughen it up. Here, I'm going for more of a comb over slash buzz cut natural sort of hairline. But maybe this is a bit more satisfying thing to watch, the shape up being done. A tip here is, when shaping this area here, stretch from the middle of the bottom and the top line of the outline you're doing. That way it will create this straight line. Sometimes people, without stretching it, it will look like it's a bit more curved and less sharp than it really should be. So to make it sharp, just pull it in from the center of the full straight line. Yeah, going straight into the beard. This time I've gone for something different. It's just that pointed beard. The trick with this pointed beard, make sure that point starts as high as possible. When it's low, it doesn't look as good. Taking out the little shavers, get rid of all the stubble, just doing some fine detailing here. And the little pocket shavers are very good. So if you wanted to get cheap one, just search up pocket shavers. And they're really good for like the little details, and you can get it very skinned if you work very closely to it. Here, using the blade, now for this look that I went for, I made it sharp on the top half of the beard, and the bottom half I preferred it to be somewhat stubble like. If you haven't already got experience with this, don't try this, don't use the blade yet. I would say first watch some basic tutorial videos on using the blades. And I don't think anyone will go straight for a blade anyway. But yeah, it's just the fine detailing of the final bits. So we're coming towards the end of the video now. While I'm doing these bits that aren't as important anyway, few pointers when doing a self cut or cutting someone for the first time. Make sure before you do anything, do get rid of the bulk at the start if they haven't had a haircut for a long while. That is very important, because if you don't, when you start to create those outlines at the start, you will find it hard, because to go into the bulk of hair and then to flick out of it, it's a lot of bulk that will be hard to create outlines, and so that the clarity of what you're working on is a lot harder. So this thing, what I'm doing here is called trigger play. So you're constantly opening and closing the lever to blend out the line. So this is something, once you're more experienced, you realize that when you open and close the lever to a certain amount, you know exactly how much it's about to cut, so you won't have to think about it. So that will come over time. Here I'm just enhancing the fade using some Topic hair fiber black. So some people do ask, what's hair fiber, what's hair fiber? You can finally see what hair fiber is, or me telling you that this is hair fiber. So yeah, I can't really get my hair that thick naturally. So here, just putting some enhancements, good for the thumbnail. And so, common question that could be is, will my clipper work for this cut? So if you don't have the Wow Magic Clipper, use any Wow machine, as long as, or it doesn't even have to be a Wow machine, as long as it fits the Wow guard system, so the Wow guards. If it clips on, then you're good to go. Ideally, if you were to use a Magic or the Seniors, that would kind of match the sort of cutting that I was doing, but it's not too much of a problem. Anyway, so we're going to come to the final reveal, and do hit a like at least, if not a question. If you hit the like, it will help me with the algorithm. Hopefully more videos like these I can then be more motivated to make, and maybe more self cuts as well for different styles that could be done.